Can you improve your tenacity, your will, your drive to get up and go? I believe you can, and I'll tell you how. Today on the Next Simple Step podcast, I'm Paul Goldsmith. I had a friend say to me the other day that I'm just not as driven as you are. And while I thanked him for the compliment, it got me to thinking about, is this an innate ability in certain people, a certain amount of drive you're born with, or is it something you can grow? And the more I dug into this topic, I realized, and I 100% believe, that you can absolutely grow your drive, your tenacity, if you're clear on what it is that you want to accomplish. And it led me to a story in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. He told a story of meeting Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was the highest ranking U.S. military official in the prisoner of war camp during the Vietnam War. He was actually imprisoned for 8 years and experienced just unimaginable suffering and torture, not knowing if he'd ever see his family again. And so in preparing to meet Admiral Stockdale, Jim Collins read Love and War, the book that Stockdale wrote with his wife, chronicling their experience during the imprisonment. Jim writes, "As I moved through the book, I found myself getting depressed. It just seemed so bleak, the uncertainty of his fate, the brutality of his captors. Then it dawned on me. Here I am sitting in my warm and comfortable office on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, getting depressed reading this. And I know the end of the story. He gets out, united with his family, and becomes a national hero. How on earth did he deal with it when he was actually there and not know the end of the story?" Stockdale's answer: "I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life." Collins then asked Stockdale, "Who didn't make it out?" "Oh, that's easy. The optimists," said Stockdale. "They were the ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and go. Then they'd say we'd be out by Easter, and Easter would come and go, and then Thanksgiving, and then it'd be Christmas again, and they'd die of a broken heart." Therein lies the lesson of what Collins calls the Stockdale Paradox. Never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. Life is challenging and it's hard for a lot of people right now. Going forward requires a commitment, an unwavering faith that your life matters. You have a purpose and agency to accomplish that purpose on this planet for the time you are here. Realize that there are going to be challenges along the way. And there's a formula that's really helped me when it comes to doing the impossible, doing the hard things, and persevering. And it's called the 4C's formula from Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach. And the 4C's are commitment, courage, capability, and confidence. It really starts with a commitment, first and foremost, of a worthy goal, of something you really, really, truly want to accomplish. And once you have the commitment nailed down, then it does require courage. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It just means you're going to do it afraid. You realize that you don't have the current capability to do what it is you want to do, but you're determined to figure it out, to persevere. And once you summon the courage because you have the commitment, then the capability comes over time. You commit to the process, but you can't skip the courage step, because if you do, you're not going to grow any bigger than your current ability, and you'll not get anything different than what you got before. And so that's part of tenacity, is like an unwavering commitment to persevere before you have it all figured out. And so you've got the commitment, you've got the courage, you're developing the capability. And then once you increase your capability, that gives you the confidence that you can keep moving forward. And then you start back at the beginning with a commitment to go even further, building the courage to try again and increase your capability. And so I think everybody at some point in their life hits a wall. And for some of us, that's the end of the story. But for others, they just keep going. And I was listening to a podcast from Andrew Huberman. Highly recommend you check it out. It's in the show notes. He talks about the part of the brain that helps you with your tenacity, helps you do things that are uncomfortable. And it's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And this is fascinating. They've done studies on this part of your brain that regulates how much pain and suffering and setbacks that you're willing to endure to persevere. And in these studies, they've figured out that this part of your brain can grow depending on how much you're willing to face uncomfortable situations. Using brain science, they've proven that the way to grow this part of the brain that regulates how much tenacity you have, is you have to constantly do things that you don't want to do. You have to challenge yourself, and that helps you endure, have perseverance. With a big enough why, you can overcome any how. And so if you're struggling with motivation, this is really something you should dig into. Maybe you just decide to do something hard today, something that puts you out of your comfort zone. And actually in the studies on the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, they talk about exercise being a great tool for developing that part of your brain. I think what it boils down to is long-term versus short-term rewards. And you get to choose. You get the little reward now or the big reward later. Don't settle for the small rewards. You can do this. And if you need help, reach out. You can schedule a free consult at nextsimplestep.com. And if there's somebody that you think could use a little bit of an encouragement, please pass this podcast along, and I'll talk to you next time on the Next Simple Step Podcast.